Well, welcome to. No, I don't hate that. Why did I do that? All right.
Welcome to the worst of the best podcast. You wanted the best. Well, they didn't freaking make it. So here's what you get. From Canada
And New Jersey.
Ryan
And Big Gun Doug. Welcome to the Worst of the Best podcast. I'm your host, and with me is a returning guest host, somebody that I've had on the show a few times, Doug. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, man, and I appreciate you inviting me back. I love these music episodes. I love listening to them. I like taking part in them because we have such a similar taste in music, especially going back to 80s metal. So these are such a thrill for me to be a part of.
That's awesome. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, you and I are very similar. You know, we were both muscular and full of tattoos, and actually, we're very different. Okay, guess which one has tattoos and which one has muscles?
It's a track, don't they say that?
Oh, that's adorable. Yeah. Well, we're both very handsome, though. So we'll
very, very much so.
And we've lost every listener. Well, maybe there are two female listeners who are sticking around. Okay, here we go, guys. If you're joining us, I should say this. If you're joining us because we're doing a Metallica Master Puppets album review, welcome. Welcome to the Worst of the Best podcast. What we do on the show, basically what the format of the show is we take that which is the best from anything from an actor's acting career, musical artist, even food item, conspiracy theories, you name it, whatever is the best of type of list or product that this individual or artist has produced, we then say, hey, even though it's the best of or the best thing or one of the best things this artist has done, like Metallica, that doesn't mean there's not something at the bottom. People are probably right now, Doug, are throwing a fit, saying, how dare you say that there's anything wrong with Master of Puppets? I'm not saying there's anything wrong, but to say that all things are created equal on everything is, I think it's ridiculous. There's no way that you can enjoy in the same shape, manner, every song, every moment of every song, even on an album like Master of Puppets. What do you think? Do you agree with that, or are we not going to be able to convince anyone that there's something that could be at the bottom of this album?
Well, that's the beauty of this project that you've embarked upon is, I mean, I agree with you. You could take the best album that was ever written, and there's still one song on there that's going to be the worst of that best.
That's all it is.
I get your format. There's top 10 lists for everything. Okay. And even out of that top 10 list, there's something that's going to fall number 10. Okay. But with these music episodes and with the director and actor and movie episodes that you guys do, it's all subjective, completely, totally subjective. So
no, we're the authority. Whatever we say here, everyone will agree. They'll stop listening to this episode. So you know what? Everything Ryan and Doug said is absolutely what I would think. I would suspect.
Right.
Oh, so we're going to pick the worst song independent of each other at the end of the episode. So we're going to go track by track, talk about our feelings about the band, about Metallica, about Master Puppets, maybe the first time we heard it, if we remember that back that far. At the end, we're going to say, hey, this song is if in whatever universe this scenario existed in, if one song just ceased to exist and you would never hear it again on this album, which song would you be willing to sacrifice to the metal gods?
I would say maybe the word worst is a little misleading because when you got an album like Master of Puppets, it's really what's the least best or what's the, the eighth best, on this album.
It always depends on the topic. It depends on the topic because we've had one of our favorite episodes is our yearly celebrity death episode. And some of the people that we pick are very bad individuals. So it's easy to say this is the worst person that died from the top celebrities that died. But this is a situation where, yes, Master Puppets is an incredibly, incredibly well-reviewed, well-loved, established thrash metal album that has stood the test of time, that's loved by metalheads, is loved by Metallica fans, both old and young. Number one, can you believe how young they were when this album came out?
I had a hard time remembering that this was their third studio album. For some reason in my young brain,
right,
I thought that And Justice for All came out before this, which is impossible because Cliff Burton was still on this album. Right. So I don't know what connection my mind made, but the how advanced their music style were this early in their career.
James Hetfield, for example, was 63. Sorry, he was born in. Sorry, he was born in. Yeah, he's 63 years old. Yeah,
In 1983, he was,
he was 63.
86.
He was born in 1963, and so he was. Quick math here. This came out in 86. He was 23.
Wow,
23 when this album came out. That to me,
at the height of his game.
That's insane to me. They were so young when they did Kill 'Em All. And they're all about the same age. I'm not going to go through all their ages, but just give an idea. So they're in their early to mid 20s, and this is their third studio album. Can you imagine? You're 23, and this is your third album,
and you're playing 70,000 seat arenas, opening up for Ozzy Osbourne. Amazing.
That blows my mind.
Yeah,
well ahead of their time. But this album became the first metal recording to be selected by the Library of Congress for preservation in the National Recording Registry for being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant.
It was the first metal album, correct? Is that what you said?
The first metal album to be selected. Yeah, by the Library of Congress, yes.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, it's widely known as one of the most influential heavy metal albums of all time. We talk about the Big Four. We talked about it on our Anthrax episode.
Yeah, go check it out.
Sorry.
No, I was saying, no, go check it out.
Yeah,
so to our listeners who might have popped onto this, we did a two-parter of Anthrax. Check it out there, ladies.
Yes. Yeah. But these Metallica, Anthrax, Slayer, Megadeth.
Yeah.
Slayer is kind of in a different realm, I would say, than the other three.
They're a little bit darker. What do they call it?
Yeah.
Is it death metal officially? I don't even know. It's thrash.
It's still thrash, but it's way heavier than these guys.
Yeah. It's not as accessible as.
Yeah. Right. These guys, like, they reinvented the genre. You can credit them with pioneering the thrash movement. Their thrash existed, but they even changed what thrash was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think a lot of people even realize little nuances that separate thrash metal from regular heavy metal at the time. I guess it's clearer to us since we kind of been researching it more for these episodes, but it doesn't separate, regular metal fans from thrash fans. Like, it's all kind of encompassing.
What year were you born?
78.
Okay, so I was born in 75. What was your first exposure to Metallica?
Probably And Justice for All.
Yeah, me too. Okay.
And I think that's why, I don't know, that always pops out in the forefront. That's why I thought
That's fair. So you were 10 years old when Justice came out.
I was, but I don't think I even discovered them until I was about 12 or 13.
Sure. Okay.
And that was my first introduction to it.
Only because I'm a little bit older, but it's amazing when you're that age, like the difference between a 13 or 14-year-old to 11-year-old. When I was 14, I was already well established listening to, and I know you were listening to music early too, but I was like you, I was listening to music since the early 80s, like Van Halen and Motley Crue and all these bands. I never really got into metal until my teen years. I can't even remember if it was Rust in Peace that I heard first or if it was Justice for All. To be honest with you, I don't know, but I credit my brother Jason, who's been on these episodes a few times. He introduced me to Megadeth and Metallica. But Metallica was, of course, their song One was the first, MTV. So Metallica can thank MTV, whether you agree with that or not, because before Injustice for All, and look, I'm not educating anyone that's a Metallica fan here, but before Justice for All, they were an underground band in the sense they didn't have videos, they didn't have airplay, so to speak. They just were toured, and they were kind of like, they call it underground because they just... Word of mouth was their mantra.
Right. Their scene was kind of limited to the San Francisco area, where they were huge.
They weren't internationally known the way, they were, but they weren't at the same time. One of the music producers, or I can't remember who it was, and again, I apologize. He said that he saw a Metallica shirt in whatever European country. He's like, oh, these guys are worldwide more than he thought, because there was no internet back then. It's just word of mouth. It's kind of cool, just like, hey, you got to check out this band, Metallica. Who are they? So Justice for All comes out. I listened to the track once, saw the video on the Canadian MTV channel, which is called Much Music. And I was like, this is so insane. So this was the heaviest thing that a young Ryan ever heard at the time. I just remember being blown away by this dark, guttural voice by James and the head banging. The video was so creepy with the guy and losing his arms, legs, sight, and everything about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so everything about it was just so intriguing. For a 14-year-old kid, I was just, what is this, insanity? So I got the album on tape cassette. I listened to Justice for All day after day after. I would just side A, flip it, side B, side A, and I had a paper route in the morning. And that was my paper route listening, was this on my Sony cassette player. It was yellow, it was waterproof.
The metal headphones?
Yeah. I love those, man. I love those over the head things. Yeah, I'm listening to this thing. It took me to a world, Doug, that I just, because I was listening to bands like AC/DC, Poison, Aerosmith, the hair bands and hard rock, but then I was taken to this world of dark energy, not dark in an evil way, but just dark tones, messages about the earth being destroyed, all this stuff. And I was just like, what is going on here? The guitar solos and the crunchy chords are just adrenaline pumping for a kid, right? For a teenager. So my brother's like, hey, they have other albums. I guess I should have known that, but I didn't know their history at all. So my same brother, Jason, he's got the Master of Puppets album on tape cassette. He goes, hey, you got to check out their album that came out before this one. And I remember kind of being like, oh, do I want to listen to something from the past? Because when you're a kid, you think, 1986 from 1990 is like, 4 years. That's a long time ago. But it's like, it's a quarter of your life ago. But so I'm like, okay, sure, I'll turn on. I'll never forget hearing the first chords. Now, of course, the first song on Master of Puppets is Battery. And I'm like, this is insane. The level of thrash and insanity was like, what is going on here? That was how I first heard this album. That was my long story. So I'll never forget it, actually. I was lying on my bed, headphones on. It was dark. I just put it on, and I was just taken again to another world of the mastery that is Master of Puppets.
I have more vivid memories of, just like you, of listening to And Justice for All, the Master of Puppets. Similar to you, it was my brother that kind of introduced me to this type of metal. And Justice for All, just like you, it was the video of one. Every time after seeing that video that I heard the song, it kind of brought me back to watching the video. And yeah, it was like eerie. In the video, they cut in clips of the movie, but not just the video, the audio too, right?
Yeah, it's like Johnny Got a Gun or something like that, or Johnny Got
His Gun, which is the book or the movie that the song is based on. It's a guy who gets his arms and legs blown off in the war, and he loses his sight and his hearing. So
that's right. Well, that's the lyrics. Landmine has taken my sight, taken my speech.
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah.
But the whole movie kind of takes place in the guy's mind, which is his own prison, because he can't communicate because he's got no arms, legs, sight, or hearing. Yeah. So that really hit me as, wow, that the horrors of what war can do to a person. I have more vivid memories listening to that.
Of course, that classic scene in the video one where he's like, kill me over and over again, kill me. You do this Morse code with this.
Yeah. Right.
Man.
Right. Insane. Yeah. But that doesn't take away from the enjoyment that I got out of listening to Master of Puppets. Just like you, it was in the days of tape decks and everything. And me and my brother had this huge, like, side-by-side one where you can record one. Just so we made, like, tons of mixtapes and shit. Nothing but good memories listening to these albums.
Absolutely. All right. So, well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do is we're going to go track by track. We're going to play little clips. There might be people listening to this, like my mom, who aren't familiar with the songs. And believe it or not, she kind of enjoys some of these metal songs. I think she said, I really like that Anthrax band. She told me that. If you can believe it. And she enjoys you, enjoys you as a co-host too. But I think I remember being surprised. Like, you listened to the Anthrax episodes? She goes, yeah.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Revolkin.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart. What we're going to do is we're going to play a little bit of clips from parts of each song. We're not going to play it all the way through. Like we always say, if you want to hear the songs in their completion and you're not familiar with this album, which there might be a couple of listeners who aren't familiar, we're going to give you a taste so you understand the sound and the energy and some of the things we'll talk about. We invite you to obviously listen to this whole album on your own. That would be our hope. If you don't know this album, take a listen to it.
We touch on just the fact that this was the last album featuring bassist Cliff Burton.
Right.
We mentioned this also in the Anthrax episode because Anthrax was opening for Metallica on the European leg of their tour for this album when the tour bus rolled off the road and Cliff Burton was ejected from the bus. Yeah. You know, the driver of the bus was charged with manslaughter. He claimed black ice, but it was largely thought that either he was drunk or fell asleep at the wheel. He was never convicted, but he was charged.
Oh, poor guy. Can you imagine that guy had to live his life as the bus driver that killed Cliff?
Oh, my God. People get death threats for such minor things these days. I can imagine that would be a big one these days.
So there is a cassette of a fan recording of Metallica's September 1986 live concert in Stockholm, which was Cliff Burton's final performance before his death. So there you go. It's out there. Cliff Burton, again, if you are a Metallica fan, there's nothing that we can say that the average fan to the fanatic fan will know more than we do. But an amazing bass player, had his own classical training, brought that to Metallica. In many ways, this is the direction that Cliff took the band. I mean, the early two albums, Kill 'Em All and Ride Lightning, great albums in their own right. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Kill 'Em All or Ride Lightning are anywhere in the league, quite frankly, that this one is. Put it this way, I'll have an easier time. I could pick 2 songs on both those albums right on top of my head that I maybe will save for another day because I don't want to give it away. We'll do some more episodes of Metallica. It's much easier to pick a worse song on those albums than it is this one.
Sure.
There's songs that I skip on those 2 albums.
I can't even think of the total track listing on either. That kind of tells you something.
There's something special about this third album, obviously. I think Cliff had a lot to do with that. But they definitely wanted to go with a heavier, more polished. It's actually in its own right a kind of a polished, a high production album. Battery, right away, is the opening track. I like the album Ride the Lightning with their Fight Fire with Fire. They had that little acoustic kind of beginning. Funny enough, my wife at the time, we went to Metallica. She was actually pregnant with our second son at the time, and that's why my second son's such a metalhead. We always used to say because he was his first concert was a Metallica concert when he was in the womb.
Nice.
Yeah, it's great. True. She was like 8. She was 8 months pregnant, so he was definitely feeling the vibrations. I always wondered, is he going to lose any hearing being in that womb? But I guess that's the automatic protection.
Yeah, you never know.
She wasn't totally familiar with Metallica, but, knew a lot of their, of course, the Enter Sandman stuff and all things like that. But she just, goes to a concert with her husband to have a good time. But it's funny, Fight Fire with Fire was played at this concert. She turned to me and says, "Oh, this is really nice." She's hearing the acoustic part, the acoustic part to Fight Fire with Fire. I just turned to her and said, "Just give it 20 seconds." And we have that same kind of beginning here with Battery, the same type of, I wouldn't say like false beginning, but if it's your first time listening to this, you might be, "Oh, this is a very interesting album," or this is a very nice soft song. It almost has like a Clint Eastwood spaghetti western feel to it. Don't pause it. Well, like I said, we're not going to play the whole song. Right away here, you got the nice little, like that acoustic, almost like a spaghetti western type feeling to it. Still with that deep bass in the background. And then, of course, the heavy guitar chords kick, and you're like, okay, yeah, here's the heaviness. Yeah, here's that heaviness. But still, as a first-time listener, the audience isn't quite prepared for the battery of sound they're about to hear.
It's a slow build for sure. Music has changed, and also the attention span of the consumer has changed too. So you start off what's supposed to be a heavy album with this low acoustic part, and then even when the guitars come in, it's just a hanging note and some drum hits, and then it doesn't really get into it. We talked a lot in the Anthrax episode too about the lengthy intros, and that was a thing back in the day with metal. They kept you on the hook until all hell broke loose. Man, when it does, it's such a great payoff. But nowadays, man, well, people even said to be like, "Oh my God, acoustic next." For me, like, it keeps me on the hook saying, "Oh my God, what are they building up to?"
Well, let's find out. Yeah, so right there, that assault of sound and James and the vocals. And again, I know I'll probably say it a few times, just how young they are. The energy and the aggression, it's insane.
It kicks. Once that thing drops and they come in with that fast, again, I hate to keep referencing the Anthrax episode, but they share such a similar style. But Lars uses that really fast, they called it a blast beat that Charlie Benante is credited with pioneering. Really fast drum beats to go with the really fast guitar. In the chorus, when the lyrics go, Smashing Through the Boundaries, Lunacy Has Found Me, they go from that really, really fast beat, and then they let a guitar chord hang just for like a half a beat before it crashes back in. It's really, really have a great, great groove. They figured out their style in this, man.
I know I mistakenly always assumed this song was about the artillery batteries that you find in war. But James has said that battery refers to angry violence, as in the term assault and battery.
The battery could be a reference to Battery Street in San Francisco, where a lot of the clubs where the band used to play were located back in their early days. But I find that harder to believe than just battery, as in assault and battery. The title refers to Battery Street in San Francisco. It was on this street that many of the clubs where Metallica first played were situated. Battery is Found in Me shows that these early shows on Battery Street were important to them. Battery is where the lunacy finds you and you smash through the boundaries. I don't know. It seems pretty like an arbitrary kind of...
It could be an interpretation. And that's the beauty of art. It fits. It might not have been James' intention. It might have just been a coincidence that the two are related. But yeah. But the song does sound like a very verbal aggression, assault. Smashing through the boundaries, lunacy has found me, cannot stop the battery. Pounding out aggression turns into obsession, cannot kill the battery. This is a situation where the lyrics just match the fury of the song.
You listen to songs, pop songs, country songs especially, there's no real reading between the lines. They put out their lyrics and it's exactly what the song's about. But back then, like you can interpret it any way you want. You could apply it to your life at the time. Some people, like, they listen to this stuff in their misery and take the lyrics as, man, it's personal to me. I'm feeling in a dark place. So they interpret the lyrics to be darker than maybe even the band intentioned.
Right.
Or when you're lifting weights, you're like, man, these lyrics really help me pump through the last couple of reps that I can't get out.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
I'm applying it to us, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm a gym rat, you know what I'm saying? You know, people look at me and like, man, this guy work out? Absolutely not. Okay. When Metallica did this, when they did this album, as most albums, it's James and Lars. They're the ringmasters with the music and the sound. I'm a Lars supporter. I'm really sick of the Metallica fans who crap on Lars for, he's not a good drummer. Maybe I'm not a drummer, so I don't see or hear what they think he should be doing. But Lars is a genius in many rights, man. Metallica would not be who they are without his business savvy, his intelligence as a promoter, and as a songwriter. James and
songwriter.
Yeah, James and Lars wrote this freaking album. So you can say what you want about it, but it wasn't Cliff. Though he had his own groove and stuff that he adds to the songs, the main riffs and the ideas were all James and Lars.
James and Lars, they sat in garage in San Francisco and they kind of workshopped the music. They start with a guitar riff. They kind of fine tune it. Then they give the song a name and write the lyrics around the name of the song.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a musician, so it sounds backwards to me, but that doesn't mean a hill of beans. I'd figure you write the lyrics first and kind of name the song after that, but it works.
It does work. And it works for the second track. Now, Master of Puppets is the title track. It's the second track on the album. It's officially a single. I guess the Metallica did release this as a single to whatever stations played this type of music, I presume. It wasn't played on your normal AM dial. I would assume it was whatever college or metal stations were at the time in 86. I don't know what stations were playing metal at this time.
I don't think it was initially released as a single until the re-release of it because they weren't featured on MTV and the radio as much. And Master of Puppets, you remember they had those little 45s?
Yeah,
back then.
This is 8 minutes long.
That's how they released singles, and the 8.5 minute song wouldn't fit on one side of a 45, so they couldn't release it as a single.
Again, Wikipedia. I'm just saying it does say released July 2nd of 86
as a single.
Yeah,
maybe
for some sort of
maybe.
Well, there were stations. There were I was only 11 years old in 86. I only listened to what my parents put on the radio in the car rides. It was their radio, but I'm sure were stations. I'm sure people would be like yelling at their phone right now as they listen to us, but I'm sure there were stations that played underground metal or what have you, and even the record companies back then it's probably like local stations in LA. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know. Okay, so
they were popular enough after Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning that they would get decent radio play on metal stations. Yeah,
exactly.
As few as they were.
But Master Puppets is the title track. It's a concert staple. It's played at every show, I would say, and rightfully so. But the problem with Master Puppets, now this is not hinted at my pick, and I won't because I've been doing this a long time. You won't know my pick till the end, probably. Here's the problem with Master Puppets. The good news is, when I first heard this, I remember again, I was a kid. I was 14 years old. When this song came on, it particularly took me a place of like, holy smokes. This is like Batteries are pretty much a straightforward, rockin' awesome, kicking your teeth opening track. But the Master of Puppets is even more polished, more heavier, more crunchy. And then it has that time change. And it takes you on a whole different journey. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. I'm like, I'll never forget. I felt like I was floating away in this weird like state of euphoria when I heard this change and the way it's melodic and almost beautiful in the chaos of the song.
It takes you all over the map, from heavy to like that acoustic interlude to like a guitar solo. When you think the song's over, they come in with another verse and chorus like at the end.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's insane. It doesn't feel like an 8.5 minute song either.
No, the problem with the song, and it's not Metallica's fault. They have to play to the crowd. So they play it all the time. But the problem with the song, James insists on having the crowd sing the verses at the shows and drives you at the wall because the crowd, for the most part, doesn't know the way James would know it. And so you kind of just get you get the crowd, whoa, whoa, whoa. They just say it's not quite clear because it's so fast and a lot of lyrics are being thrown.
I've never seen him live, but I know what you're talking.
Yeah.
What you're talking about. He has a crowd do the master.
No. They'll trade off a chorus here. For example, he'll say "End of Passion Play," crumbling away, and then the crowd will then sing, "I'm your source of self-destruction." The crowd say, and then he'll say, "Veins to pump with fear, sucking darkest clear." And then a lot of people don't know the next one is leaning on your desk construction. Now, maybe a lot of them do. Further, he goes into the song because your memory is just what it is. And there's a lot of casual fans, but there's a lot of I listened to this 100 times over. Like I've listened to the song for decades now. But it's just
it's a little muddy when it
gets a little muddier. And I don't think he does it as much anymore because maybe he's caught on to that. But in the 90s and early aughts, he would do this. And I'm like, stop making the crowd. I just want to hear you sing it, James. I don't get a kick out of the crowd singing it. I like it when the singer sings it. And this song, he's notorious for it. It takes a little bit of the oomph out of it when James doesn't sing. Anyway, so without further ado, let's hear how this song begins, shall we?
Shall we?
Right away. No build up. Right there, that part. So right there, that part there is where the crowd would kick in. But let's talk about that intro. Well, I hate stopping it. Trust me. That's one of the worst things about doing this podcast. It's like I want to keep listening. But again, if you want to hear this album, guys, listen to it by all means as much as you want. But
this is where I think a drummer's genius, like Lars's genius, comes into play. That might not that I'm a music expert. I'm not, but I understand what time signatures are.
Okay. And
usually in music, you get like 4 beats per measure. That's the time throughout the entire song. But they do things like in the chorus, when they're at the end of, when it's like that's an interruption in the time signature. Those things are like, they come right out to the forefront. And I'm like, wow, where the hell did that come from? Adds to the heaviness of it, and I guess the thrash genre.
So let's hear a little bit of the chorus for our listeners who might not know the chorus, and then we're going to show you that little time change that we talked about, because I think it's a really important part of the song.
Just call my name 'cause all you scream.
That's a great chorus, and that's the part with the crowd. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not trying to be a wet blanket. I like when a crowd sings with the band, but I don't like it necessarily when they take over for the band. That part right there is a great crowd interaction with the lights, blink up and down, master, and the crowd's the whole crowd screaming the master. And I always wonder when bands do this, when they record their songs, do they kind of know, hey, this will be a good crowd interaction part?
I don't. They might.
So that definitely is there.
Could you play like the interlude, the solo during the interlude? It's Hetfield's solo.
Yeah, Hetfield. Yeah.
It starts. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the best part of the song, quite frankly.
But it's an acoustic part, the metal, electric solo going over the acoustic, and then as the solo progresses, it gets heavier and heavier. It's like a slow build.
Before we get into a little bit more there, and this song is 8 minute song, so there's a couple of parts we need to showcase. Incredible build up solo with that, and then that rolling drum that Lars does. I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of that tribal, boom, 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 like kind of menacing, doom is approaching type drumming, and it gets really heavy, and they're just like, Master. Then the parts come where Kirk will kick in with his solo, and that's just
which is incredible. Also, by all rights, should be like towards the end of the song. You think, maybe you'll have another version of the chorus and the song ends. There's still 3 minutes left.
Yeah, it's insane. Look how fast Kirk is going, man.
He flies, man. His guitar work is amazing.
It's funny. I still feel like he's an underrated guitarist. I don't know why. I just don't think he gets the credit he does. I know he does, but they're hugely successful, very well off band, rightfully so. They have a lot of money each, but sometimes I just feel like he just doesn't get talked about enough. I don't know why it is.
I don't know, man. Now, guitar players are a dime a dozen, so
maybe
I definitely think he sets himself apart from the rest. But there's people that can do this solo.
Here's the thing: I want to make this clear. This is to all you copycat showboats out there who do covers of bands that you love, which is great. But just because you can do it doesn't mean we should applaud you. And don't get at me here. What I'm trying to say is that it's one thing to play what's already been created. Mm-hmm. He created the sound. He created. I agree. Okay, I want to make that clear. So when I say Kirk, because Kirk creates all the solos, James and Lars create the riffs in the songs, but they had to say, Kirk, here's your solo. For the most part, that's my understanding. Kirk is a solo guy. He was hired to be the solo guy. That's his thing. He's amazing at it, and Kirk will interpret what needs to go there for the solos. This goes for everyone that does watch 12-year-old girl play Van Halen. That's great. That's an incredible talent, but I'll wait till she creates a song that's as good as Eddie. And that's a whole different ballgame, being able to compose the music as well as play it.
You can have the fastest fingers in the world, but if your solo doesn't sound good in the song, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't mean anything.
Or you can't create a Master of Puppets album.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, so
if you can.
Look, I know a lot of people make money off YouTube and stuff doing cover stuff. And it's not anything against those people. I'm just saying, like you're saying there's some guitarists who are very good at being guitarists. They're technically good at their craft, but they don't compose songs that excite me.
Right.
Yeah. So to me, it's about composition, not just speed. But in this particular case, we have both. We have speed and amazing composition. But I just want to play this next part really quick, and then we'll move on to the third song, is how it just rolls back into this incredible crunchiness again that I just love. rolling, you'll hear it. To me, it's almost like Beethoven. It goes back to the chorus and then
Back to the chorus,
rinse and
verse.
repeat in a good way. It's funny that I say Beethoven because we know that Metallica, of course, hooked up with the LA Symphony to do a couple of symphony albums that they've done where they've mixed classical or orchestral instruments to mix with their songs. And Metallica is basically Beethoven, or if you do Beethoven and put electric guitar behind it, it's metal.
That's an interesting way to think of it, but you're right.
Like you just replace like and you just put it with violins. It's
Yeah.
You know, it would be just like a violin sound. I'd be absolutely ridiculous. You can see me doing this. Nobody else can. And I look like an absolute reject. All right. Anything else you want to finish off with that song? It's a big one.
No, it's a long one. It's a big one.
That's
and
what
it's,
she said.
You're like a big child.
I am terrible. I'm 45 years old, Doug. What is wrong with me?
You know, I yell at Katie all the time for laughing at your jokes, man, but you got me on that one.
I'm terrible. All right. Speaking of things that should not be, the third track is called The Thing That Should Not Be.
You can go right into it. It's a real different look than what we've seen so far.
Mm-hmm. That's the way of putting it, yeah.
Yeah.
Just like you're saying, a very different feel. We've got the pace is slowed down, and it's very kind of creepy, kind of like dark, like almost like I always picture the song like if music could have a physical form. I always vision the song like a slinkering snake through the grass, like this creature, kind of this thing that should not be this creature that should not exist does exist, and this is what it's doing. It's a very horror kind of film type feel to the song.
That riff was written to emulate the sound of a sea monster dragging itself into the sea. So you're not wrong.
Wow, look at me.
The song is based on the legend of the sea monster Cthulhu,
which they did a musical instrument. An instrumental on their. Is that the same creature that they did the Call to Cthulhu on their Red Lightning album?
I forget the author's name that wrote.
H.P. Lovecraft.
That's the guy. The thing that I notice about this is how low and chunky the guitars sound, like a lot lower and more. I know,
it's even lower than the master. That's right. We've even got like it's a deeper tone already. Yeah.
The very limited knowledge I have on music, sometimes like a band will tune down their lowest string. Like it's normally an E chord, I believe. And sometimes they'll tune it down to like a D, which gives it like a really darker feel. And I think that may be the case. I know they have done it a couple of times, Metallica, in their darker songs. So that could be the case in this one to give it that darker feel.
Oh, probably, yeah.
But it's chunky.
I would say it's the heaviest track on the album. I wouldn't say just the heaviest in the sense of like speed, but it's the chunk. It's the one that sounds the lowest in tone
and slowest rhythm wise too. Beat wise.
Pretty good. I've heard something.
Nailed it.
Okay, actually, hear that again. Alice in Chains, anybody? Let's listen to that again. Which is totally fine. I mean, one of my favorite bands is Alice in Chains. There's no argument that Metallica has inspired much sound and influence to the bands of yesteryears and today. Let's hear that again, that Alice in Chains riff there. Right there.
You mentioned Alice in Chains there, and I can see it does sound it fits in a grunge scene than metal.
Of course, it's just a little bit heavier than grunge, but I mean, Alice in Chains has done some pretty heavy tones and some of Jerry Cantrell, and it's no surprise. Sure. One of the concert I was speaking about earlier, I've seen Metallica live 6 times, but the show I was talking about earlier, where my wife at the time was pregnant with her second son, it was actually Jerry Cantrell was opening for Metallica. There you go.
Wow.
Yeah. Small wonder that they kind of run in the same circle of sounds there.
Yeah.
All right, the 4th track on the album is called Welcome Home, Sanitarium. That sounds like my life. Every time I come home from work, it's a madhouse here. I got my son next to me laughing at that. You like that, buddy? Yeah. My 9-year-old son got that joke. Yeah, this is an interesting song. I remember it was about grade 11 or 12, or as you Americans would say it. It was my, don't tell me, it was my junior year in high school. There was a big metalhead. At this time, I'm fully enthralled, I'm a complete like metalhead in the sense of I look kind of like I do now. I've always had, short hair, more or less. I had long bangs in the 90s, like you would see on Dawson's Creek or whatever. But that being said, I never had long hair in the back. I had long bangs. I was able to put my bangs in my mouth. It was like that surfer look. Anyways, the point is, I always loved metal music, even though I didn't look like a metal guy. And I had this conversation with a classmate, this girl, and she's like, oh, I can't listen to Metallica. They're just singing about this and that. She basically accused them of probably being satanic or evil in their lyrics, which is hilarious because when you read their lyrics, they're talking about being controlled by the government, being controlled by drugs, being controlled by like the dangers of drugs, the dangers of government control, that being a basically there's some songs coming up talking about that, of course. Dangers of religion. They never talked about sexual or anything gratuitous. For the most part, their songs had not and there is a song that has some cursing later, which is interesting. We'll talk about that. But they actually very rarely curse in their songs. So I showed her the lyrics to Welcome Home Sanitarium. It was interesting. I actually wrote them out. I actually presented it to her as a poem. And I didn't tell her it was from Metallica. I said, hey, check out this poem. Of course, this is pre-internet. I didn't have the internet at home. But I had the liner notes, of course, from the album. So I wrote out by hand. And I titled it Welcome Home Sanitarium by James Hetfield. And she didn't know who the singer's name was. And she read it, goes, wow, this is a beautiful, very intriguing, beautiful piece of literature regarding mental patients and stuff. I'm like, oh, yeah, it was by the band that you think is terrible, Metallica. And she goes, well, looky there. So she appreciated what I did to show this. Sometimes you got to maybe work your way backwards into accepting your misconceptions of a certain artist might be, And she ended up liking the song. I remember that.
And I heard this my whole life listening to metal. Anytime somebody, you're a fan of Iron Maiden, kill your mother, kill your father, eat your dog. That's not even close.
That's country music. On Kill 'Em All, they had nothing that was slow on that album. There was no songs that quite slowed down, really. I don't like the term ballad, but we say ballad because of the pace of the song and the sound. It's a little bit more accessible to maybe someone who doesn't have metal ears. Fade to Black was an example of that on Ride the Lightning, and now we have this again for Welcome Home on this album. And then One, in many ways, was like that for Justice for All. And then they went into full crazy stuff with Nothing Else Matters. But this is an example of a song that's slow and melodic for much of the song, and it certainly starts off that way. right. So right away you're like, oh, okay. And you might be tricked. You're like, oh, they got me with battery with this kind of intro. They're going to go heavy right away.
I treated to a little solo right before the verse starts. It's a departure from what we've heard so far, but this, man, I love this song.
Yeah.
And not for the power ballad, for like it flip flops back and forth. We go from this, we go to heavy, back to the acoustic verse, back to heavy. Kirk's solo later in the song after the interlude is insane. I saw a guy in high school. I was friends with a guy that was a really fantastic guitar player. I saw him play Kirk's solo. That's after the not interlude, I guess breakdown or whatever.
Right.
It blew me away. That was really the first time I've seen somebody play guitar live, and just to see what it takes, like, and how fast your fingers have to move up and down the fretboard is incredible.
Welcome Home Sanitarium. It's just like we're saying, it's about mental patients, but specifically it's based on the novel One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which is a great film with Jack Nicholson and Danny DeVito and Christopher Lloyd. Conveys the thoughts of a patient unjustly caged in a mental institution. This is 86. Very, very forward thinking of James and Lars at the time to come up with the thoughts. Because to think about it, they're young 20-year-olds, and they were, at the time, they were pretty bad about their drinking. So it should be noted that at this time, and James has struggled with alcohol addiction throughout his life, and he's clean right now, but he had a recent stint early, but at least he keeps trying. There's no shame in that, and we want James to be healthy. It's an addiction. It is a disease, but he's been fighting it his whole life, but he's been clean more than he hasn't been the last 30 years, I think. So, but definitely these first 3 albums, I think he was very, very not sober. But for the recording of Master Puppets, they made sure that they were sober for all the recordings. They took this album very seriously. Yeah. Anyways, I was all over the place here, but I was saying how young they are, but coming up with the idea that even back then they recognized that people are unjustly locked up in mental institutions when it's too bad. You know, we got a lot of people who aren't getting the help they need. And maybe unjustly so, they're locked up. And they shouldn't be locked up in this cage, is one of the lines.
It's an ever-enduring problem, I think. Mental health.
Of course. So let's hear a little bit of a James kind of harmonious type vocal sound here. Welcome to where time stands still. No one leaves and no one will. Rule is full, never seems to change. Just labeled mentally deranged. Dream the same thing every night. I see our freedom in my sight. Yeah, a little bit of background vocal there. You don't get too many harmony vocals on a Metallica song.
Get a lot of harmony solos. Not too many harmony vocals.
Not too many harmony vocals.
I want you to lead the verse into the chorus, because the thing that I find, and you can kind of hear the mental patient unraveling in this, because as the verse goes on, he starts with a softer register on his voice, but then as the verse gets closer to the chorus, he starts to get gravelly and like sounding more and more angry.
Yeah, you can almost see him wrapped up in a straitjacket, and he's trying to shake back and forth.
Yeah. Could you just play that progression into the...
Leave me be. Sanitarium. Just leave me alone.
And then it repeats that same type of motif. You can feel the build-up, the rage.
I love that build-up throughout the verse.
I'm going to get slaughtered for this, and I almost hesitate bringing it up. But I know James plays a lot more solo work than we sometimes forget that he does play a lot of solo work, but you don't catch it until you see it live. And I believe he does the solo part here. I know he does the intro part.
He usually gets the early solos, and Kirk gets the real big, the bombastic, ripping solos later,
which is coming up right now. There's an amazing part right now that's coming up that I want to showcase, where it does then end with that incredible Metallica energy that they have, where the patient's now gone to full throttle insanity. And James yells the part, sings the chorus again, gets into it, goes, sanitarium, leave me be. Then he yells, just leave me alone. He yells that in the concert. Again, I'm not a prude. I don't necessarily need to have cursing. We don't curse on the show. But the way he does it live is amazing, because he usually yells out, just leave me the F alone. The way he screams that real anger that this person may have in real life is amazing. Let's just listen to it. See if I found it.
Sanitarium.
Okay, before we kick in a little bit of a Kirk's genius of the soul here, I know.
That's blue balls if I ever heard. You can cut that out. Sorry.
No, those people were so mad at me. Like, no! I'm sorry, I can't play the whole song all the way through anyway. So, but yeah, we know what's coming. Kirk's amazing soul here, but I love the poetry, quite frankly, here because now the mental patient. I don't mean mental, but the mental health patient's a better way of saying it, is about to go into overdrive here. The lines here, fear of living on, natives getting restless. I like the idea of natives at this place. Mutiny in the air. You can feel the tension building in this facility. Got some death to do. Mirrors stare back hard. Kill. It's such a friendly word. Seems the only way for reaching out again.
That hits, man.
Yeah, and I always took that as him killing himself.
The talk about mutiny and everything, it seems
true.
like they're organizing a coup there in the sanitarium.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Let's hear Kirk's soul here to pound that energy home. Okay. Not a very long solo.
I know they go through a couple of measures of that, just that dun, 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 dun. To cap that one off, there's this great guitar part that goes dun, 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 dun. Every time that just let that play real quick. Right here.
Great stuff. Yeah, it's a powerful song. And that's a song that should get boring fast. It's a type of song, it shouldn't be as fresh as it is.
Mm-hmm.
It beats the odds. It beats the odds. I don't know how it does it. I mean, it's an amazing song, but it's songs like that run into the danger of not being held up after 30 plus years, but it certainly does that. This is the 35-year anniversary of this album, by the way.
Wow, look at that. Hey, my kids come on enough. It's nice to see it.
Yeah, I was going to say to our audience, if you hear some clickety clack at the keyboard, it's my son playing Roblox on the computer next to me. But just bear with me. I'm a father still. Father first, podcaster 10th.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so the next song, this is another song we talked about where it's very clear what they're speaking about. Disposable Heroes is essentially at the end of the day, I'm in the military, and I'm not going to speak ill of my government because I'm not allowed to, but and I wouldn't anyways. So what I'm trying to say is that it's unfortunate throughout time is what I'm getting at. I'm proud to be in the military and I'm proud to serve my country, but it's unfortunate that throughout time, especially World War I and II, the Vietnam War, of course, those are the big ones of recent years in our world's history. People have laid their life on the line for government officials and greedy men, usually, who don't do the fighting themselves. These heroes, and they are heroes, these people that have died in war. And the album cover, we should make it known, the album cover, though it's called Master of Puppets, it's talking about, those are the people that are in power. And it shows strings attached to these crosses on a cemetery row, endless looking of crosses, and with an army helmet hanging on one of the crosses, of course. This song, even though it's not the title track, in many ways it kind of is the title track.
Yeah, that's the overarching theme of pretty much the entire album, right? The Master of Puppets in Disposable Heroes refers to the government just churning out soldiers, as cannon fodder.
Yeah, exactly.
Just something for the enemy to shoot at, almost as if they were clones in the Clone Wars of the Star Wars prequels. Just in the song Master of Puppets, it's a guy that can't get over his own cocaine addiction. In Leper Messiah, which we'll get to next, it's about televangelists and how they control the masses by manipulating people to believe in their religion. It's really like a good overarching theme that covers like a lot of different aspects over the entirety of the album. It's really I don't know how they had the foresight to do this, man. I'll never get it.
Geniuses, even at such a young age. They were artists, and they were born with the gift that we don't have this DNA in us. Yeah, maybe you're born with it. Maybe it's Maybelline. I don't know.
Why did I laugh at that?
Okay, that part right there. It's just
No secret what we're getting into.
well,
Really insanely good
and it was
opening.
place where it was, of course, because now we're the second side of the album. This when you bought this as a cassette or as an LP back in the day, now you're flipping it over. This is the first song on side 2 of the next 4 songs, and yeah, you're getting into another 8-minute song. This is speaking of title tracks, it actually is the same length as the title track, Master of Puppets. But yeah, you're getting to right away. Yeah, this is Disposable Heroes. This is a wartime song, anti-war song. It was the charging sound of the battle. And I always pictured this of the soldiers charging across the field with the rifles, going through barbed wire and what have you, and then that. I always picture that's like enemies in the foreground coming to meet them, especially with the planes like flying overhead. I kind of picture this coalescence of enemies and friendlies coming together to fight.
It's like a build-up before the actual fighting starts.
Right.
Because
it's the charging, the getting ready.
Yeah. Because you hear the galloping like dun 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 dun, dun, but the drum beat behind it is kind of like just a slow, like a slow build.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Before the action.
But he's even kicked up a notch here, but it's going to kick up again for a third time. Incredible lines there right away. It says, "Soldier boy, made of clay, now an empty shell. 21, only son, but he served us well. Bred to kill, not to care. Do just as we say. Finished here. Greetings, death. He's yours to take away."
Yep. That just gave me the chills just just listening to that.
Now, I think it's worth hearing that, how he sings that. Or
yeah. That little part at the end there, or that's Kirk's version of kind of like a music that you would hear in a war film.
Oh, nice. Okay. And we should listen to the chorus because this is important, and then we'll talk about the next part of the song I want to talk about. But yeah, here's the chorus because it's very telling of what this situation is like for these poor soldiers.
Back to the front, you will do what I say. When I say back to the front, you will die. When I say you must die, back to the front. You coward, you servant, you blind man.
Oh, wow. And I love that where it's like you got this leader saying, "Oh, back to the front." These poor kids are like, they're scared.
I imagine this being like the faceless bureaucrat.
Right. The guys that are looking over the map while they're in their tent or whatever, or even above those guys, the bureaucrats with the ties.
Right.
You know, the
yeah,
guys,
send them in.
Yeah.
Send them in.
Send them in.
They're dispensable.
They're soldiers. What's their problem? And we probably have a few listeners. I don't know a lot of soldiers and veterans are Metallica fans, and Metallica is a huge supporter of veterans. They've done many shows for them. They are huge supporters of the veterans. I have always loved their love of, particularly they're from the U.S., so their love of the U.S. troops, and they've always supported the troops. So having an anti-war song, they're not anti-troops. They support the veterans, and they recognize the danger and the sacrifice these people make. But to say that people have not died because of the selfishness of government whims is ridiculous. You know, it's a horrible situation where people have died in war because of land, oil, whatever relations, whatever the thing. Like, really, what do we? Yeah, I don't want to get too much into it. I mean, I'm in the military and I'm proud to serve, and we do security patrols, and we try to keep the waterways, because I'm in the Navy, free for trade, and human trafficking is stopped, and drug running.
Who wants that?
Who wants that?
This is one of those songs where, I mean, the music behind it is great, but the lyrics, they hit you just as hard as the music itself does.
Yeah. Okay, this part here. So Kirk does his solo work going on here, and then they go into the bridge chorus here. Then James screams at the part, "I was born for dying." They need to play this song more live. I would be happy if they gave up Master Puppets and they just started playing this one more live. This is a very underplayed live song. End of the day, they should be playing this more. Like, he's got to do that more live. He's got to do that. Look, I love Master Puppets, but to me, this is a better song. I think this is a better song. Honestly,
I don't know if it's
sacrilege. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not as bored of it. I don't know. This is
that could be it. Master Puppets is played to death.
That's
but this
the problem,
especially that part. Like you can get the crowd involved in that part too.
Yes,
like if you
the whole
want
crowd
interaction.
Yeah, because you turn the lights on to the crowd, and everyone's like, "I was born for," and the whole crowd screams it. Oh, it'd be amazing.
Or even the die part. You know,
yeah, they love doing the die for the crowd. Die. Creepy death. I love that.
Creepy death. Yeah,
yeah. This is a crowd song. This is a song they should. I know that you have played it live. It's not very often. It's not very often. Okay.
Shame.
Leopard Messiah.
What is with the songs about televangelism back then?
Yeah, well, you had your Tammy Faye, Jimmy Bakers. Well, because televangelists back then were quite a thing. It wouldn't fly today, and I don't think it flies today, at least on TV the way it did. But they were so prominent back then. Even I, as a kid, saw these people on TV. Basically, send me your money, give us your money. You have these people faking miracles on the stage, falling backwards. Come on with this stuff. I'm glad today's people are a little bit more like today's youth and today's audience are a little bit more savvy, where they now treat these people as the caricatures that they are.
Yeah. Maybe it was easy poke fun at back in the day. Like I didn't, I mean, as a 10-year-old, I didn't realize it was televangelism was as big of a scam as it really was. But
well, yeah.
It's a big money grab. Like, you know, you give us money and God will show you the way. It was only about the money for these people. Yeah. So, I mean, Anthrax had a song about it. These guys, you know, like I guess they saw through the fraud.
Right. And Leopard Messiah is based on the false promises by TV evangelical. Now, if you're religious or if you're spiritual, that's fine. That's wonderful. I actually consider myself spiritual in the sense I believe in being good. I believe in being kind. I believe in, I don't know if karma is the right word, but I believe what you put out in the world, you do receive to some degree. I mean, bad things happen to good people. Good things happen to bad people that I can't explain. You know, you're a father and I'm a father, and I know you're a good father, and because you try. I know you're not perfect. I'm not perfect either as being a parent, but you can always tell the parents that try. You're trying to be involved.
In the right place.
Yeah, your heart's in the right. Yeah, of course you're going to fall short. But what I'm getting at is that's my religion. That's my philosophy. That's my spirit. It's just being kind to those around you. And you just hope they'll be kind to those around them. And I know it sounds corny. I know it sounds cliche. But if everybody was just nice to everybody, kind of wouldn't that solve a lot? I know. It's so stupidly simple. It's actually mind-boggling to me, Doug. You keep your intelligence level. You keep your artistic level. You keep your fitness. Everything that it makes you. But then the only thing that I would ask the human race to change is just be nice.
Yeah. I mean, it's simple in theory, But I mean, you got
No, we still lose our temper. I stub my toe and I say a couple curse words, or I find things in life frustrating. Like there'll be things at work that I find difficult, or my favorite sports team loses a game. You're allowed to have emotions and say, "Oh man, it sucks." Or that. I'm not talking about not having emotions or being frustrated or even feeling angry. There's a difference between having frustration and anger and being unkind.
There's a level of greed that me and you can't really comprehend. There's that feeling where I want to succeed no matter what bridges I burn down, no matter who I hurt, no matter who I step on. And that's not our style. The types that make the world go round.
I don't know. Not to say you and I are saints by any stretch of the imagination, but we're very like-minded individuals. Did you see that news footage of that truck dragging that Mini Cooper across the highway?
Yeah, I did.
It's terrible. I'm laughing because it's like laugh or cry, right?
Yeah.
This truck driver, maybe he was cut off by this Mini Cooper. Maybe the Mini Cooper did do something. It's attempted manslaughter. I don't know how he's going to get out of this. Like he's pushing a car across the highway for a long time. I think it was like 7 kilometers or 7 minutes, one of the two. You're going to jail in your desire to hurt somebody in the process where you thought you were wronged. We've all been wronged. I've been wronged, but to cause harm just right away back because you've been wronged is... I mean, you're a police officer, right, Doug?
I am, yes.
How busy would your job be if everyone that you dealt with was kind?
Oh, man. It would be a lot more, I guess, rewarding as a career if it was.
Right.
There'd
still be emergencies. You'd still be called out to emergencies and stuff, but you wouldn't have robbery, assault, domestic calls. You'd almost be out of a job.
I know. A society like that can pretty much govern itself.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't need security because there would be no need. I wouldn't jump the stage to hurt somebody.
Right. Alas, this is the world we live.
I'm sorry. The older I get, Doug, the more I realize I just, not to get all philosophical here, but the older I get, I'm definitely midlife, I'm 45.
Sure.
If not past midlife. I just realize people, you just let go of your anger. There's so much to be enjoyed in this world. If you just let go of your selfishness and anger, you might actually enjoy your life. I'm being too philosophical here.
No, I got lost in it too. But
okay. All right. So here's Leper Messiah. Let's check this out.
1, 2.
That was Lars at the beginning there.
1, 2.
Very distinctive voice.
So I pause it here. I was just saying that was Lars calling up the time at the beginning. Obviously, he's the drummer and what have you, but you can hear him. Lars, he's hilarious. But I love this part that's coming in right now, this rolling the bass line.
The bass line.
Yeah, here we go. All right, so for our listeners, line there, I love that line where he says, spineless from the start, of course, the beginning, sucked into the part, circus comes to town, you play the lead clown. I love that. Speaking to those evangelicals, that circus, they're doing their rounds, and they're spreading his disease, living by his story, and I love that. Knees, falling to your knees, suffer for his glory, you will.
I like that trail off, you will, or the echo, you will, you will. You will.
And then it goes into the chorus. Time for lust, time for lie, time to kiss your life goodbye. Send me money, send me green. Heaven you will meet. Make a contribution, you'll get the better seat.
Yep. Yep.
Oh,
yeah, it's all about the money. It's a really groovy opening. It's not as fast as the songs we've heard before, but I like the guitars and the drums just go really, really well together here in the beginning.
This is my favorite part of the song right here.
Rolling.
This is actually my favorite song on the album.
Leper Messiah?
Yeah, it's a dark horse, I know. I love this album, but just like there's a least favorite, because they're all favorites, this is the one that has built on me throughout the years. I always find something different or new from it that I just love. And it's just the message of it and everything about it I just love.
It's definitely not in the running for the worst, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed this song. It makes me want to move.
Did you see their concert video that they did, concert footage where they had the movie theater experience they did about 7 or 8 years ago? I forget what it was called. What was it called? Anyways, it was like they had some film footage and stuff mixed in with their concert footage. It was like a Metallica concert. It was like 2014 or 13 or 14. Anyways, they played at the end of it, just the 4 guys on stage, and it was just the camera crew and them. They played this next song, Orion. Orion's probably it's probably the greatest instrumental they've done, I would say.
Do they have many?
It's not like it's a huge running. I mean, they have one on Call to Cthulhu, then they have one on Ride the Lightning, Justice for All, and they have one also. They actually have one on Death Magnetic as well. So they don't have very many in the sense they have a lot. They seem to put 1 or 2 out per one per album. This is just an amazing jazz infused type build up. This whole song now it's 8.5 minutes. We just don't have the time, obviously, to play even too many parts. But let's just give a bit of a sample of hear what the song sounds like. Now it's a big build. It's almost like a minute. So you hear this like throughout the beginning. It's just a very quiet build up, but then it kicks in at the minute mark of this part. With that kind of groove, but what I love about the song, it's a very groove, kind of like it's just like it's hard to explain, but it's a very kind of groove infested type song.
Yeah, it makes you want to move. Yeah,
almost danceable in its own way.
Yeah, and I give a lot of credit to Lars's drum beat on that. It's not a fast beat, but it goes well with the guitars that are just. It's like those palm mutes that they do. Oh yeah, that kind of adds to the grooviness of it.
All right, and now there's a lot of changes in the song. The song has a lot to offer, and it's 8 minutes. This is the halfway point. Cliff Burns, amazing bass playing. He'll always be missed by both the band and the fans. That's probably James there to get that nice bluesy kind of solo work that will kick in.
That has some Jerry Cantrell feel to it too.
Oh yeah, you hear that too. I love this solo work here. Let's play this last part that I really like the way Kirk's tone sounds here on his guitar. And then it kicks in again back to that beginning riff. I should note, and Doug said this before the show started, people who've listened to our podcast regularly, we thank you for your listenership. But we have a rule in our show that instrumentals don't count, but I should make it clear. It's not that they don't count to have a pick or not. It's because usually the singer doesn't participate. But because all members participate in the song, it counts that it can be, in theory, in running for the worst song on the album. So Doug asked, are we not doing Orion? I said, no, we're doing Orion because all 4 members participate. That's the rule. And I should make it's not that instrumentals don't count. It's just 9 times out of 10, when it is an instrumental song, the lead singer usually bows out. But it so happens that James does both guitar and lead singing. So he's in this song playing.
And me not really analyzing this one for the episode didn't change the fact that it's not going to be in the bottom either. Even though it's an instrumental, and usually it's the lyrics and the vocal melody that kind of draws you in. Yeah, there's enough going on in this song that really keeps you interested through the 8.5 minutes. You know, it's not a boring song at all.
Instrumentals are tough, and that's why I usually take them off the bracket for picking worst, because it's kind of an easy pick. I like good instrumentals, but I'm sorry, I can't listen to instrumentals in the sense of there's something to be said about vocals. The human vocal is an amazing instrument. It adds energy and personality that guitars, drums don't do, but they all work together. I think singing is such a valuable part of a song. It's hard to argue otherwise. But Orion is a song where it's like, ooh, it doesn't need it. In fact, vocals might wreck it.
It's almost like the guitars, those real trippy solos take the place of what you would want in a vocal.
Yeah, that's fair. Absolutely. Last song. Can you believe it? Last song is the only song that has an explicit warning, is the song Damage Incorporated. So the same way the album opened with a crash, bang, thrash metal type energy, the album closes with the same type of thing. Like I said, they don't usually curse. Metallica didn't like the fact that the record labels put an advisory on their album because of this one song, and they had this
right at that time. That organization, I forgot what it was called, but the parents' organization got together and they wanted to put a warning on these albums to protect the kid. Like a lot of the bands rebelled against it, and the stance that Anthrax took and battling it too was crazy.
So the band mocked the warning stickers promoted by the PMRC. That's who you're talking about. That's the Parents Musical Resource Center. Yeah. They were as an American committee formed in 1985 with the stated goal of increasing parental control over the access of children to music deemed to have violent or drug related or whatever. Shut up. So just mind your own freaking business. It's so stupid to have an organized. I, as a parent, will figure this out. I would be thrilled if my kids listen to this album.
I know.
Anyway, so this one song does have the F word in it a couple times. It's used once, and it's an amazing usage in the song. We can't really play it for the podcast because we just don't have the F word on this. It's a non-explicit podcast, but they had this to say. This is quoting from the band. I don't know which band member said this. The only track you probably won't play is Damage Incorporated due to the multiple use of the infamous F words. Otherwise, there aren't any S words, F words, P words, C words, MFers, or CSers anywhere on this record, which is so true. There's nothing gratuitous in this record at all. And the lyric, it's the best, one of the best parts of the song. It's almost too bad we can't play it because I wouldn't want to edit it. But it's at the end here where it says, right here. That's right here. It's still say the F word 3 times. Yeah, I didn't even catch that one. Slamming through, don't F with Razorback. Stepping out, you'll feel. They sing so fast on this song.
Yeah.
But there's the best one. The best part of the song is like F it all and F and no regrets. That's it.
Which is a mantra. That's a mantra that people live by.
Yeah. So it says, damaged jackals ripping right through you. Sight and smell of this, it gets me going. Know just how to get just what we want. Tear it from your soul in nightly hunt. F it all and F and no regrets. Never happy endings on these dark sets. All's fair for Damage Incorporated. You see, step a little closer if you please. That part of the song is just amazing. Let's sample the energy at the beginning here. So it's a big intro that I cut out, and then they kick in with this thrash beginning. There's only 3 minutes.
This is thrash.
Yeah, this is straight up thrash. I think they did this on purpose too, because much of this album isn't this. So Battery and Damage are this. It's kind of like showing their thrash, because I think this album might have divided even some of the Metallica fans back then. There were people already back then, even with the old Metallica, there were people even back then before the Black Album ever came out and before One was a video, there's Metallica fans even here that they were mad.
Ride the Lightning is such a great thrash album that you can't kill it for Fade to Black, just like you can't kill Master of Puppets for Welcome Home. I mean, it's just one song out of 8 that rock.
Yeah.
This is a great. I mean, like you said, that it's like the thrash songs like kind of bookend the album, and this like with Battery Master Puppets up front, and this is like a great finisher, man. you want to go out on a bang, this is a great finisher.
Digging up the agony within, touching hard and no one's gonna get it. Living underneath conformity, dying on your feet for honesty. Inbred of bodies working fun, but even never quite submission. Following our instinct, not a trend. Go against the grain until the end. None will follow none.
And of course, everyone loves that whisper. Damage Incorporated.
One of the lyrics up front, I think it's in the first verse. He says, "Living on your knees, conformity, dying on your feet for honesty." And did you ever hear like any versions of this kind of quote before?
Can't think of anything.
I've heard it before in music. You ever hear the band Rise Against?
I'm not familiar with it, but I know they exist, and my son actually saw them in concert. But
Yeah, so did I. I'm actually a big fan of theirs. I think they fall under the hardcore screamo kind of genre, but they have a song where they insert lines from this movie Catch 22, where one of the characters tells another guy, like, "I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees." Think about that quote. It's like a cry of defiance, saying it's better to die fighting for what you believe in than living your life begging or surviving by bowing down to whomever's in charge. That quote has always kind of resonated with me. We talked before about how people do what they do for success, do what they have to do, and they don't care who they tear down in the process. And this is the anti that. I just love, I don't know, I love the quote. You know,
it's awesome.
How he uses it here. Living on your knees, conformity, dying on your feet for honesty.
Love it. Love it. What a great closer. And now we have the arduous task. And this is where we're going to upset some of our listeners, if we haven't already, because I know this is almost blasphemy. But keep in mind, just because something is the worst or the least of the best in this case doesn't mean we don't love it. This is what makes this our project with this podcast as fun as it's been on some episodes, because it does challenge us. Some topics are easier than others to pick a worst. It's very easy. Some are more difficult, which makes it more fun in some ways, because you have to say, okay, which one, if I had to rank these songs, if I had to rank, they're not all 10 out of 10. They're not. This album is a 10 out of 10 in my books, but within the album, there is one track. I'll go first, unless we both
Please
have. I always feel bad because I want my guests to go first. Actually,
go first.
Okay,
First. I went first. I went first in the Anthrax
did
episode.
You? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good memory. All right, and it's been this way since I've listened to this album since day one. It's a song that I've tried to have it grow on me. Leper Messiah, it's not my pick, by the way. Leper Messiah was a song when I first heard it. I was like, I don't know. But for whatever reason, it grew and it grew and it grew. I was like, oh, I really appreciate the song, to the point where it's like my favorite song on the album. It's just an amazing song. So many gems. And it's one of the shorter songs too, but so many gems in that song that it grows on you. And I love a song that surprises you with multiple listens. But this song, no matter what, after 30 years of listening to this album, it has not grown on me. It has stayed the same. Not a bad song. Mm-hmm. There are bands who wish they had a song like this. Let me make that clear. Right. Okay. It's track 3, The Thing That Should Not Be.
Yeah, I chose the exact same.
I had a feeling. That's why I kind of wanted you to go first. I feel bad, but
no. Again, like, we have such a similar taste in what we look for and everything. It's a unique song. Mm-hmm. There's some great parts to it. I just think all in all, it's the same thing over. And how long is it?
It's 6 minutes, 40 seconds. So it's
of the same thing. Repeating.
That's the problem. It might have been a better song had they tightened it, but in madness you dwell. It's too much. It's like
vocal melody is kind of droning. Mm-hmm. The riff I mentioned earlier, it's low and it's heavy and chunky, but it's the same riff over and over and over. It's not a discredit to the song. It's still better than a lot of metal songs I've ever heard. Most metal songs I've ever heard. But when you have to pick an 8th best on this album, that one just comes.
There you go. It's the 8th best song. It's not a bad song. I never skip it. Mm-hmm. It's a little long in the tooth for a song. It's only 6.5 minutes long, which in Metallica terms, it's not that long. Right. But I think if they shaved it to 3.5, 4 minutes, it would be a better song. It might still be my worst pick, but it wouldn't feel like it drags. And when a song drags to some the dragging point, you're kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, Doug, thank you so much for coming on. Do you want
It's
to
a
just
pleasure.
do you want to just plug where you're from and what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm my main podcast is Rocky Minute, and I'm part of the ever expanding Last of the Action Heroes podcast network. You know, we encompass all things action in the greatest genre era of action movies ever, like the 80s and 90s, you know, action films. Just you can picture it in your mind. That's what we do now. Over here with Ryan and his Going the Distance podcast. Craig Cohen Slycast. Now we added Bruce Willis, James Bond podcast, Dolph Lundgren podcast.
Yeah.
But we're taking over the world, everybody.
Yeah. It's again, so just Google on Facebook or on your Google apps, the Last of the Action Heroes podcast network, and you'll find in that feed a multiple of movie reviews of the golden age of action films. All right. Thank you so much for coming on, Doug. Remember, in front of every silver lining, there's a cloud. And Doug and I today found that for you on Master of Puppets. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm sorry, I get so chatty, Kathy.
Don't
sometimes.
I honestly, I didn't think that we would get so much content out of an 8-song record, but this was incredible, man.
I'll be editing this one. I have to edit this one, but it's gonna be a good edit.
It's a monster. But thanks for having me on.
You bet, brother. Always. We'll talk soon.
You got it, man. Later.
Bye bye.
Alligator Productions.